Oh, hello again, everyone. This is Sankit from Maverick Currencies here, and we are back with another market coverage for June the 30th. It's a Thursday. What a day in the market. So let's talk about it. We are officially ending our first half of the year and ending in the second quarter as well. And this has been quite a market to deal with. So let's talk about what's going on and how the currencies and other markets are doing, because we are certainly in this volatile period, but we certainly are finding lack of direction across the board, which again makes a very challenging environment. It's easy to trade when you have a +2 and a -2 in your trending score and your velocity scores, and then suddenly things are not as clear or not moving in a fashion that's giving you the greatest opportunities. So let's talk about markets. Markets, again, what a U-turn, because as we went into this week, it seems like we were off the lows and we were about to get a bit of a more bullish market, sideways to a bullish market. But again, we are been seeing back-to-back losing days since Monday. So this is where we are finding a bit of a lack of conviction here. If you look at the candlestick today, I mean, that's a wide candle. We started off with a much negative note. We tried to rally, and then here we are ending right in the middle. So as we are getting this kind of price action, we're still off the lows, but notice that we are just getting this. This, you can say this is a bear rally, but today's candlestick was not as clear. We are already down quite a bit so far in this first half of the year, and it seems like the relief is not really coming at all. And if it does, it just get knocked down once again. So very bearish price action. If you take a look at the World Stock Index, we're getting similar moves. Again, what a U-turn from what we expected the market's going to be to where we are right now. So we are again officially closing out this first half of the year, so in the quarter as well. So we'll have to see really what really brings on in the next month as we begin a new quarter. So we'll take a look at the markets again. Crypto world is really where the big pain is, and anybody that has been exposed to the crypto markets, again, you realize that there's just no sort of relief coming in. I mean, at least in the equities, we've seen some rallies that come in the markets, but in the crypto world, and we've been very vocal about it, that this is not the place you want to be. And again, if you take a look at the charts, and I've mentioned that, go back to 2018, markets environment were very similar. Equity markets are breaking, the crypto markets are falling, and then the equity markets did recover, but crypto markets did not. And again, that's something you have to keep in mind, that this market's this is a worst market environment for cryptos. Other areas we could still, call for some rallies here and there, but this is a losing battle here if you're trying to find a bottom here. Outside of that, I mean, take a look at the percentage change today. The biggest percentage move was really the cryptos, down 5.54%. We also saw the oil was down. We saw the markets are down, so pretty much everything was down today. And a lot of the inflationary pressure that we've been getting, that's coming from the oil markets, either it's the natural gas, it's the yields, everything is backing off. And I feel like this is kind of in a zone here where everything is kind of mixed matched here, and we're just trying to find out the conviction here to try to see which one is really leading us here. The yields were really the big concern for the markets, and now the yields are actually kind of falling back as well. We've seen some inflationary pressure as these energy markets are biggest inflationary factor right now, and they're backing off as well. So there is a bit of a tug and war, and we have to see which way market's going to break out. And I mean, let's see what brings on tomorrow. Just realize that this is we're going into Monday as a holiday, so we might see some lighter activity tomorrow and better liquidity next week. Taking a look at the markets with the news events, again, this has not been a busy environment. With the news event, we have ISM manufacturing PMI tomorrow, but really nothing is really moving. These news events are not really moving the markets here. So let's talk about currencies. Let's do a quick analysis and see how things are performing. And we'll quickly glance at cryptocurrencies there and move on to the foreign exchange world. This is a very ugly day today, and as we take a look at the charts, we had made an attempt just a week ago, and it seems like we are actually breaking lows again. So at this point, this is not where you want to be. Now, coming into the currency world, I mean, we are seeing these movements that are happening on a day-to-day basis, but if we just take a look at overall when it comes to a trend or a velocity trend, it's just not there. I mean, a lot of movements are happening, and it's a bit of a head scratcher because one day it's up, one day it's down, and it's not really following a trend or rhyme or reason. And you get this big move, and then we get nothing out of it. So there's no follow through. It's more like a one hit move. Look at the yen. Yen was up today. Dollar was down. Swiss franc was down. Remember, Swiss franc was up yesterday. So really a lot of back and forth. CAD, an outperformer, was actually down a little bit. Aussie was up slightly. Q was up slightly. But look at the percentage change. This is not an enticing percentage change on the board that you want to be going after. And this is where, if you take a look at the velocity scores right now, again, cryptos are -3. That's where the velocity is. But if you take a look at outside of that, we are getting these movements, but I'm putting all the currencies in the middle there. There's really, if you take a look at a lot of these 4-hour charts, and that's exactly what we look at when we study the velocity, you will find that there's not a whole lot of trend that you can find. Even on a velocity, the things are happening on a day-to-day, but even that price action doesn't follow some sort of correlations or anything, any such things like that. So let's take a look at possible trades here. We'll take a look at some of the interesting charts, and then kind of disqualify some of the trades that we might be looking at. But this is where we call this a qualification process or disqualification process. So let's just kind of look at things across the board. And one of the things I want to point out, there is a bit of a lag, I think, in the currencies here. The biggest thing that was driving the currencies were really this correlation between the bond yields and then correlation between those currencies. And interestingly, let's take a look at some charts here, and we can actually take a look at some of these correlations here. So look at the dollar with the 2-year yields on the dollar, and you can see that the yields are actually backing off where the currency is just going sideways. Other parts, we have seen these being a very good of a driving force, and you can see that right over here in this period in May, the yields start to back off. The dollar was still running, but then boom, right there, it actually got more onto the downside here. Right now, we're not really seeing that. We are in this extended period where the dollar is just holding in there, and taking a look at the yields, they're backing off. And it's just not the U.S. story. Take a look at, let's say, the Canadian dollar basket. Same thing. If you take a look at 2-year yields on Canadian dollar, and let's compare that with the yields, you can see there's a very nice correlation that is there. The yields going up, and so is the currency. And you can see right over here, the yields are falling, the currency is just holding in there. So there's a bit of a disconnect that's taking place. Same thing. Let's take a look at Aussie basket, and we take a look at the Aussie, the 2-year yields on Aussie, and you can see where they were kind of much in correlation. They were moving along the same lines, and right here you can see the yields are backing off quite aggressively, but the currency is just not really moving in that fashion. You can see that direction, but look at the last few days. This is the last few days has been, if you're trading the Aussie, and this has been definitely a frustrating period to be short short this currency, because you get 1 day up and a 1 day down. And look at the yields. Yields have been going down in the straight arrow. So I'm finding that this is not really being a great market environment, because it's just not a one currency story. We can rule out one currency over the other, but this has been the story across the board. So where do we find the leading and the lagging indicators that could tell us what's going to happen with the markets, or where can we find the direction? Take a look at the markets today. This is the market price action we had intraday in the U.S. markets. We were down. We had a big rally. We kind of moved back again. So a lot of back and forth, lack of conviction. But let's take a look at some of the intraday price action in currencies as well. And you'll find that it was actually quite disappointing, some of this price action here as well. And again, we try to go for a biggest percentage move. And it's hard to find a good percentage move. And you can see where Aussie, let's use Aussie as an example. Like this is where we actually broke down over here. It looks like it wanted to break lower, rallied up, didn't go anywhere. This is a lot of choppiness. And trying to find out when to buy and when to sell is just quite challenging. And notice that big movements are happening right around the Asian market open. Then we have the U.S. market open. But outside of that, it's a whole lot of nothing. So if you're trying to find something that's moving in a certain way, it's hard to find that. Same thing if you take a look at 15-minute chart just on CAD, and this was the price action today. Really did not go anywhere. You got some quick rapid rise and fall, but then did not follow any sort of rhyme or some sort of theme here. So this is, again, a story that's playing out across the board, just not the Canadian dollar story or the Aussie story. This is a story across the board. Let's actually take a look at yen as well, and take a look at Swiss franc. Outside of the dollar, these two are the bigger ones that be moving, and you can see this is a 4-hour chart, and you can see since the last couple of weeks, this thing hasn't gone anywhere. And has its periods where it has risen, it has fallen, but you can see that it just lacks consistency. And that's why, if you're looking for consistency, this is not really the market environment to be in. Same thing with Swiss franc. I mean, let's talk about yesterday. Swiss franc had a nice little update yesterday. We got a nice little rally. And then today, we just see a bit of a fizzle out. So you can see that in the 2 days market price action, things are unchanged. So what's causing these moves? I mean, there's not a whole lot of correlation that I can put together to tell you why Swiss franc was stronger yesterday, but it's actually weaker today. So this is what you have to kind of deal with the markets that's in front of you and kind of go with it. Same thing if you take a look at the dollar price action. A lot of these runs or rise and fall are happening, but it's not really following a rhyme or reason. So timing these things are the most difficult part, and as a trader, you look at these moves and say, well, I can catch that, but how do you catch that? How do you time that? It's actually a lot difficult task to do when you look at that, and you have to always consider the timing as well. I mean, let's just use dollar yen as an example. It's been running very nicely, as you can see, kind of made a little double top right here. But then this only started to move down at about, actually, this was moving down in the Asian markets here, and then here we are seeing a bit of a pullback. So, this is where you would go for a little bit of a breakout. Did not happen, and this is just moving in a sideways range here. But these ranges are big, especially if you're trading these yen crosses. Another good example, Swiss franc yen. If you look at the price action yesterday, it did break out, and then if you look at the price action overnight, it did break lower. So what really allows you to make a call on this and then see a total reversal? Well, it's pretty difficult. Even look at the price action that it moved. Like, this only moved in the European session here. So currencies are active based on what session you're trading. Aussie likely to be more active in the Asian markets or the Kiwi, and then we have the Swiss franc, even the euro, being active in certain market conditions. But even if you take a look at euro price action today, I mean, it stayed weak the whole time, only to recover right around between 10 and 11. Like, how do you see this coming? And that's a question I always get. How do you see this coming? And I'm like, really, you don't. Like, why this thing happened yesterday and it just stays sideways, but it happened again, but we see a V-shaped recovery. Well, that's always a mystery, and that's why we try to go for consistent moves instead of just going for these off chances that you're going to catch that move. So a couple of pairs that I've been kind of watching. This is where we're seeing a bit of a recovery here. Euro Swiss franc. Notice that I've actually talked about Euro Swiss franc and how the parity level is key, and this is another pair that kind of is a bit of a head scratcher, because the movement that came today, that really came at between that 10:30 to 1 to 11, and you can see we got a quick fall and a quick rise. So whenever you see this quick fall and rise, it always makes you question what is the surety that this is actually going to have a follow through. So I think one thing I do like the fact that Euro Swiss franc is making a bit of a recovery here. And it's back above the parity level. So this thing has not actually traded below these parity levels, and you can see back in March where it actually did break below and touched the parity level, and then actually had a very nice recovery off of that. I can say that same case that this time it will happen again, but the daily chart, the price action, looks a little bit better here. So I think you need to watch out for that in order to make a determination if the Swiss franc, it continues to be this one-sided trade, or is it going to take a break here? And I think that's a challenging part. If you take a look at daily chart, look at all these wicks that you have on a currency basket on Swiss franc. Very one-sided trade, meaning that you're only trading it onto the upside, and there's not really an opportunity to be had on both sides until today, where it actually did pull back. But again, this is still still early to make a call because tomorrow is another day and this could easily recover that. So finding consistency in these moves are very difficult. Same thing with the yen. If you take a look at the movements here, I mean, yen has been constantly being hammered, and everybody's asking to the point, like, what point do you think the yen would just oversold and wants to rally here? And again, you kind of want to see that in the price action, and this right now here, this price action, there's a support in place on the yen basket. So we kind of see that. So I think we're going a bit more range bound in some of the yen here. And you can actually see that in these currency crosses like euro yen. Euro yen, you can see some of the currency crosses that are actually going sideways now. And daily chart on this one, you can see there's a nice little resistance in place at about 144, and this is sitting at about 142. So they're still supported by these moving averages, so the trend is still to the upside. But in the shorter term, we are finding a bit of a tug and war between bulls and bears, and you can see there this thing has gone sideways. Even CAD yen. So one thing we do notice that things have kind of slowed down. I mean, this is the movement that everybody really wanted to kind of see over and over again. But then when you get this is where it's kind of difficult because it's not really giving you that much advancement. I mean, it still looks like it's an uptrend, but neither is breaking out or either is breaking lower. So it's kind of stuck in between, trying to figure out which way it wants to go. The trend is still on the upside, but now we're hitting this choppy trend where if you go back here and if you go back these two periods, they were actually quite aggressive. And that's where you get a multi-day move back to back. So, I mean, if you take a look at what happened back in April, I mean, we did consolidate a little bit and rally further up. In this case, we actually have pullback, rally, but we are making a bit of a lower high. So this is not giving me a good indication which way it really wants to go. And, let's talk about correlation. The Canadian dollar is weak a little bit today, and, I would actually expect CAD to be a little bit more weaker if it's following the relative strength and weakness from the correlation from the oil markets. And U.S. oil actually is down quite big. I mean, you can see this chart. I mean, what is this? This looks like to you. This is a bear rally. We did pull back quite aggressively, rally up a little bit, and then we are back at the lows. I mean, is the CAD doing the same thing? It's not really. It is down a little bit today, but it's not really following that relative, that kind of movement here. So I still like CAD. Again, right now it's hard to find any currencies that you want to be really bullish on. I mean, the yields are pulling back. I mean, but take a look at these hourly to 4-hour chart. They're not going anywhere. I mean, the last couple of days has been pretty frustrating to trade this because it's just, these candlesticks are not giving us a good signal. Either wants to break down, they're not really breaking down, and they're not really breaking higher. So very similar story across the board. So my 2 cents here is that, just watch the markets and see what's really happening for that day, but really keep your expectations in a small range. If you're looking for some breaks, wait for confirmations on certain currency pairs. Look at the Aussie dollar. I mean, we have seen this thing test that the 68, 60 area a couple of times, and each time it looked like it wanted to break lower, but then here it is not really breaking lower. And look at the sideways movement here. So if you ask me any of these pairs and say, well, is it a buy, is it a sell? I would say, well, it's neither. It's not giving us a good indication. I mean, we do notice that both the Aussie and the Kiwi basket, they're right at the support area. And the question is, do we break that or do we still rally? I mean, right now, if you take a look at Aussie, there's a nice support on the basket here. So I'm not really seeing a break. Last time I did break, I'd rally further from here, and there's a lot of choppiness that's taking place there. So we're likely not to see these movements until maybe next week when we have central banks that are on the docket. There's more volatility that's coming online. So I think there's going to be more of that activity around the central bank events. I mean, just go to Forex Factory and you can actually go look at the schedule for next week, and you will find out that, hey, no rush to make trades today or for tomorrow when there's better opportunities coming next week. And I think that's where we are at, not really finding great opportunities, but just keep an eye on the next couple of weeks. Actually, there's a whole lot that's on the schedule, and I think this is what really going to drive the currencies out of this little funk that we are in. But until then, keep consistent with your trading plan, and always understand the market conditions and pick and choose if you want to trade those conditions or not. Not really personally a big fan of current market conditions, but I'm waiting for things to kind of turn out one way or the other and see if there's more consistency to the moves. But that's really the game plan here. Whenever you see lack of conviction, it's better to kind of keep the powder dry and wait for the better moves to come out. And just keep in mind that, it's a trend wise on a velocity. There's not really much happening, and things are happening on a day to day. So you have to really look at the markets on a day to day. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great rest of the evening, and we'll see you guys in the next update. Take care.